Susan Twist is one of Doctor Who Season 1's biggest mysteries. As is now tradition, she once again appeared in this week's episode in yet another role. So, having previously showed up as Isaac Newton's maid Mrs. Merridew in Wild Blue Yonder, an unnamed heckler in the church on Ruby Road, comms officer Gina Scalzi in Space Babies, an unnamed tea lady in The Devil's Cord, and as the interface of the Villengard ambulance units in Boom, she played a hiker out walking in rural Wales in 73 Yards. And in case you weren't aware, Susan Twist is ultimately believed to be playing the big bad of the season and of the finale, a character called Susan Triad. As is also now tradition, in this video I'll be checking in with the Susan Twist mystery, looking at this week's appearance and dissecting it for all it's worth. So let's get straight into this week's appearance, what I think must have been Susan Twist's longest single scene or appearance in the show so far. Obviously she was quite prominent last week as the ambulances in Boom, but I think in terms of the amount of dialogue she's had so far in a single scene, this must surely be a record. I've counted no less than 6 topics of conversation that are covered here in this scene, but let's first consider the context in terms of this being a Doctor Light episode, with Ruby being the main protagonist, and this is the first person she comes across in the story once the Doctor has gone missing, and I quite liked that. I thought it was quite a nice touch, quite a funny touch, because she is becoming more and more prominent, and I suppose otherwise this would have been a very small part, played by some actor just brought in for the day, no one kind of particularly famous in their own right or anything, and indeed it wasn't a prominent role in its own right, but this is nevertheless the first person that Ruby meets, and the first person that interacts with, spoiler, her older self, the woman, the 73 Yards woman in the distance. And the balance between those two things is kind of symbolic of Susan Twist's characters as a whole. They're kind of people in the background that you wouldn't otherwise notice, but in this case it was kind of someone important as well, so I liked how that was done, and how it kind of subtly draws more attention to her, and hopefully starts to make casual viewers that haven't necessarily been picking up on this so far start to take more notice of her. So first of all, she tells Ruby she must be mad to be wearing so few layers. She then reveals the name of the village in the distance to be Glingatwig, and there's that glorious moment there where she says to Ruby, "Forgive my pronunciation, the locals don't." Then Ruby says to her, "Have I met you before?" And Susan Twist's character says, "No, I don't think so." And that look on her face there, it's so well played, I love it. And this is very interesting actually, because it's the first time that either the Doctor or Ruby have actually acknowledged Susan Twist's characters and the recurrence of them in the show in dialogue. Because every other time she's appeared, with the exception of Boom last week, they've either not been in the scene at all, or if they have, they've not noticed her. And I suppose what Ruby is referencing here is the ambulances from Boom when she says, "Have I seen you before?" or "No, that must have been something else." Now, we don't really know how much of this episode Ruby actually remembers, and there's that comment right at the end when she says, I've been to Wales 3 times, there was the thing with the guy in Mumbles, there was Shy Girl in Cardiff, and then there was now, which to me suggests some kind of subconscious echo type thing, where she remembers some of it, but not everything, not the details of it. In any case, it'll be interesting to see where we go from here in terms of the mystery and the Doctor and Ruby acknowledging it, whether there's a similar moment either in Doctor's Bubble or Rogue, where the Doctor, recognises her and acknowledges her, and whether there are any scenes of the Doctor and Ruby discussing it between themselves. Perhaps Ruby does remember this, and perhaps she'll say to him, in Rogue or in Doctor's Bubble, "Oh yeah, I saw her in this alternate timeline in Wales too." It's also interesting that Susan Twist's character is managing to pervade all aspects of time and space, including alternate timelines or parallel universes or whatever this was in 73 Yards. And that might be more incidental, more kind of by accident than design, in that they kind of needed her to show up in this episode and every episode, regardless of whether it was a proper timeline or an alternate one or whatever. But nevertheless, that does kind of add to the mystery of the character and the power of this character as well. The fact that they can not only kind of appear across time and space, but also in these kind of dream parallel worlds as well. We then get a few more kind of grounded northern comments like, skin off my nose and get in the warm, whatever. Then Ruby mentions the Doctor, and Susan Twist's character kind of turns back round and says, "Do you need a doctor?" Which again is one of those kind of milestone moments, like the first time she's uttered that word on screen in an episode, the first time she's uttered the Doctor's name in a manner of speaking, and certainly not the last. There's an interesting point there as well about whether she knows who the Doctor is yet by this point, because obviously on screen the pair haven't come face to face yet, But if she really is the big bad, and she's been playing this long game since Wild Blue Yonder, and kind of intentionally following the Doctor on his travels and stalking him and showing up here and there and everywhere, it would make sense for her just to be pretending here, to be performing, which, I think given the number of other personas she's had so far, is probably the most likely outcome. And then obviously she goes up to the woman, and the woman speaks to her, and she runs off. And that's it for this week. It's quite funny actually because, when the whole Susan Twist thing started to blow up around Christmas or whenever, there was some speculation about the 73 Yards woman actually being Susan Twist. Because there've been loads of photos of her at filming, on set, mostly from afar, much like in the episode itself. And I think at the time I probably believed this too, to some extent, like this woman was Susan Twist and it was kind of part of this bigger story going on. But then I went back and checked the actual images and I was like, no, that's clearly someone else. Although I don't blame people for getting confused because there are quite a lot of mysterious women in this season of Doctor Who, like Mrs. Flood, Susan Twist, the 73 Yards woman. It is kind of one of those things where you can very easily get confused. So we're now at the halfway point of Season 1. What am I thinking about Susan Twist, who she is, what she's up to? Do I stand by my comments in previous videos about her maybe being the meddling monk, the first Doctor villain, or maybe even being Ruby Sunday's mother? I think overall, the Ruby's mum theory is probably still the most convincing to me. Like this idea that Ruby's mum could have actually been there all along, hidden in plain sight, and hidden in plain sight for her as well. Like she's literally interacted with Susan Twist's character here. How ironic would it be if she'd met her mum without realising it? I think at the very least, she's definitely connected to the whole Ruby Sunday mystery in some way. So maybe she's not actually Ruby's birth mum, but maybe she knows something about what happened there, or she was responsible for whatever happened there, and how it, presumably links up to all this mythological stuff we've got going on with legends and gods and the one who waits. I definitely get the sense that there's more to her than meets the eye, pretty obviously, and that she kind of knows what she's doing. I don't think it's kind of like a Clara situation where someone has been splintered across time or sent back along the Doctor and Ruby's timeline, like just some random woman. Although I suppose that is possible, and maybe this could be one giant red herring where we're all kind of looking at Susan Twist and actually, she doesn't turn out to be anybody significant, or Susan Tried, this eventual kind of character in the finale, ends up being just like a kind of foot soldier for the real big bad. But yeah, with those comments about the Doctor, and with her just showing up in so many different places, and in these alternate realities, and all the stuff like that, I think this is definitely a deliberate, intentional thing, kind of like trolling the Doctor and Ruby. I'm not sure there's anything kind of more to it than that, like just doing it for fun, to tease them, and to be able to say, oh, I was there all along, and you never even realised. I think overall, though, I still do hope there is some twist in the tale, a twist at the end. We shall see. Will Susan Twist do the twist? Will she perform? There's always a twist at the end. A new rendition, a new recording. Who knows? What are your latest thoughts and theories on the Susan Twist mystery based on her appearance in 73 Yards? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more Susan Twist content in the future. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.